Hello everyone, welcome to the orbit of the coding. So today I am going to explain what is behavior subject with example. So behavior subject is a special type of RxJAX object, and this is not only used for multicast value to the multiple subscriber, also it store the latest emitted values. That means so when newly subscribers subscribe using the behavior subject, it's got the latest value, latest emitted value. So I am going to show you the example. So before showing to the example, I'm going to describe when we can use a behavior subject, right? So in mostly cases, behavior subject is used in the state management in our Angular applications. Like if you need to use, we can say that authentications, and you if you need to communicate one controller to another controller. So in previous tutorial session, I was explained. So if there is a relation between one component to another component like parent child relationship, child parent relationships, then we can use communication between them, right? If there is no relation between two component in your Angular application, then how to transfer data from one component to another component, right? So in that case, we can use a behavior subject if there is no relation between any components, and you need to in your project requirement, if you need to send data from one controller to another, so then we can use a behavior subject. So let's flip to the visual code. I have already prepared some examples. So right, so I can show you in the UI. So in the UI, I have create a count, decrement count, and increment count. So this is the example of subject. So subject, how like if I go to the subscribe or emit value to the incremented value, then how count is showing. And this is the button add second subject subscriber. So if I subscribe more than one value, then if I subscribe like such, if second subscribe is subscribed to the using the subject, then what is the value? And similarly on the behavior subject. So what is the current count of the behavior subject? And if second subscriber use the behavior subject and subscribe that object, then what is they receive the value from the subscriber, right? So I can show you in the visual code. So I have already create a variable of subject and behavior subject. So if you create a subject or behavior subject, you need to add a dollar sign like this and use new and pass the number, because in my case I need to use increment decrement number, so I have to pass a number, right? So in the behavior subject, if you declare a behavior subject, you must need to initialize a value like this. So I need to pass a zero default value. But in that subject, we don't need to initialize a value. But in case of behavior subject, we must need to initialize a value, right? So in the current subject current zero, current subject we have assigned a zero, and we have create a one subject log, behavior subject log, and one boolean object like second subject subscriber added, or second behavior subject subscriber added false. In it, right? So I have subscribe the subject and pass the value, and the push the value to the subject log, right? Similarly, in the behavior subject, I subscribe and pass the value and push the behavior logs to the subscriber one and initial value one, right? And in the method increment count one, I just emit the value to the subject and emit value to the behavior subject. And similarly on the decrement count, right? And this is the most useful method, like add second subject subscriber. So this is the second subscriber. Increment decrement is the first subscriber, and this is the second subscriber to the subject. Then we can identify the stage, like how can we identify the difference between subject and behavior subject. So in the I just subscribe the subject and pass the push the value to the subscriber to and value, and I put the debugger here, so I can show you how debugger it from this place or not to if I subscribe the second. And similarly on the second behavior subject, I can just subscribe the behavior count and push the log to the subscriber to receive value to, and this is the subscriber to behavior subject and immediately receive the latest value, and I have put the true for the if second behavior subject is true, then we can call this. If not, then return the value from the add second subject, right? So now I am going to show you the examples, right? So if I click increment, here you can see that current count of the subject is 1 and the subscriber 1 receive the value 1. And similarly on the behavior subject, current count from the subject 1 behavior subject, this is the similar case. And this is the because we must need to initialize the behavior subject, so its initial value is 0. And similarly we have subscriber 1 receive 1. So now subject and behavior subject behave the same. Now I'm going to increment one more, subscribe one more, emit one more value to the subject and behavior subject, right? So subscriber 1 receive a value 2, and similarly subscriber 1 receive a value 2, right? Now I'm going to show you the actual difference. If second subscriber uh, call the subject, right? If second subscriber call the subject, it maintain the last subscribe value or not. So when I click on second subscriber, so the second subscriber to subject after current values, it's not display, it's not receive the latest emitted value, right? If we use a subject. So second subscriber to subject after current value, right? And similarly, in this case, if I click add second behavior subject to the subscriber, when I click, so here you can see that in the second subscriber, it subscribe the value and receive the latest emitted value, right? Value 2 here, right? And similarly, I have also put the in the subject debugger, I have already put, but the subject do not receive the second subscriber the latest value, right? It's not called the second subscriber, but in the case of behavior, it's called the second subscriber, right? So this is the real difference between them. So I'm going to show more difference in the theoretical way, right? So, so, so in the subject and behavior subject, if you need to initialize value, in the subject, we don't need to initialize a value, initial value, but behavior subject, we need to initialize a value. Latest value replay, you get already shown in the example. No, we don't get the latest value to the subject. But if you use behavior subject, yes, I can get the latest value repair. So use in the event broadcasting, we can mostly use a subject, but behavior subject, if you need to state management, then we can use a behavior subject, right? And similarly, like common use of behavior subject, I can already explain in the state management angular, authentication, theme, or if you have a cart items, then we can use a behavior subject in that case, right? So thank you guys. That's it from this video. If you have any question, please put into the comment box and I will try to explain. So happy learning. Thank you.